It's Saturday, and here's today's edition of Severe Weather Outlooks. And, a lot of times in the summer, I would let this kind of go by the wayside a little bit because the severe weather possibilities really start to drop, come July, August. But, the show continues here for several days in a row. So here's the video. I'm meteorologist Ted Keller, starting with today's Saturday. A little bit of a marginal risk up here in Montana, but certainly this catches your attention on the East Coast with New York State, Pennsylvania, and Ohio being the primary threat. There's already ongoing storms in that area. I even saw a tornado warning earlier this morning in south central Pennsylvania. So a lot of active storms here. And the level 3 out of 5 is in effect for that orange area right here, which includes Cleveland, Pittsburgh, Harrisburg, New York City, Washington, Baltimore, all of Delaware, all the way up into a good chunk of the state of New York, too, including Buffalo and Syracuse. There is a tornado threat. It stands right now at 5% in this area. I think these thunderstorms here are probably going to be the most severe. I don't know if they have the biggest tornado threat or not. The Storm Prediction Center does think so, though, to the point where they put the intensity level estimate here, which means that so the percentage is one thing. It's any tornado within 25 miles. And then when they put this out, it's an attempt to estimate, based on previous situations like this, what the intensity level of said the tornado would be. So it's not enough just to get one. This is actually making some comment on how strong it could be. So again, these highly favor well over 80% chance it'll be an EF 0 or 1, but about a 1 out of 5 chance, 20% chance that this could be something a little bit greater, especially like on the EF2 side of things. So that's something to consider, that New York City's in that, as well as just about all of New Jersey and getting over to Philadelphia in that area there. On the wind side of things, that continues to be a high probability too, 45%. It might be on a low side in terms of percentages compared to other guidance. But again, you're talking about basically the enhanced area that I showed you a couple slides ago defines the wind risk area too. I did take a look at tornado risk for today. So in the period between 5 and 6 tonight, right up here, you're seeing a little spike there between Scranton and Birmingham, right on the New York, Pennsylvania line there. Probably about a 30% chance of a tornado in that area. And if you look at the hours previous to that and right after that, it just kind of covers this area here, and then it fades away pretty quick. There is a NATOCast product. It actually shifts the higher probability up to 10%, a little more east, so right centered on New Jersey there. So that's interesting, with a little 5% drape back toward Syracuse. Again, that's for today. And the wind risk is pretty high. In fact, I'll make this comment again. It's off the scale. I'm assuming that this black here is 75%. Whereas 60 is that color right here. So wind is a big possibility. And finally, as always, almost always, we show you the CSU's outlook, and it shows the tornado threat roughly in the same area, a little more north into about the eastern one half of Pennsylvania. And the wind risk, they're not as gung-ho about it, but a 30% risk is where you see that pinkish red color, and that goes a little bit more down into North Carolina than the other outlooks do. Then we'll turn the page to Sunday, a little bit of a risk. So obviously there's a front cutting its way through here, and so about ahead of that through North Carolina, centered mostly there, a level 2 for Sunday. And then Bismarck, Fargo, North Dakota, a good chunk of northwest of Minnesota is under a risk for severe weather. And that, as it stands now, is primarily a wind risk. And in fact, the wind risk and the slight risk, level 2, exact match. So that exactly is why there is that level 2 out for Sunday. Tornado not really showing up on Sunday tomorrow. The wind risk is actually worth noting there in the eastern Carolinas. And then we go to Monday, and now this is a day that I was speculating about on the last video, whereas this is probably where there might be a level 2 on Monday, and certainly that has come to pass. And it's also where I might spike a tornado threat. And yes, and now see the SPC will not differentiate on their day 3 forecast between the 3 severe weather types. We can always look to CSU to figure that out, or at least give us a rough idea. So they've got that at a 5% risk, smack dab in the center of Wisconsin up into parts of the UP, and okay chances for wind and hail too, but not spiking into that red. I did look at the StormNet tornado risk again, and so from La Crosse down to around Dubuque, Iowa, and that little southwest corner of Wisconsin, and a little sliver of northeast Iowa does have a 30 plus chance, maybe percent of a tornado on Monday. And this is for the 12-hour period from 1 p.m. to 1 a.m., so late afternoon and evening. Then on Tuesday, this whole thing slides. The front that is causing the problems slides and causes this to stretch out from southern Indiana all the way over into Pennsylvania and parts of northern Virginia, including almost all of West Virginia. So that's the SPC outlook on the right. And on the left, we have CSU's look at things about roughly matched. This has just shifted a little more south and east than SPC's forecast. Could be some timing differences on that, too. The severe weather risk on Wednesday shifts from about halfway through New Jersey down through Richmond, Virginia, down to around Fayetteville and Charlotte there in North Carolina, almost to Columbia, South Carolina. So there's that outlook, and then the risk that goes with it from CSU. Then not really much to talk about after that on any of the long-range guidance at all. So we'll just kind of sum it up with NIU's Week 1 supercell composite. It should outline what I just talked about, and it really does. It doesn't really emphasize Pennsylvania very much, though, but it does look at New Jersey a little bit more for later today. I'm sure that's a contributor, and I'm sure most of this is the Monday forecast. And then supercell composite is almost identical. Week 2, this is the last 7 days of July, basically. Really kind of a problem up there in Canada. And then maybe a little bit more week 3. This is August 1st through the 7th. And some supercell possibilities showing up. Again, week 3, highly variable. But from South Dakota back up into Western Canada.